The first rule of suburban warfare is that nobody talks about suburban warfare. The second rule? When your neighbor points a camera at your bedroom window, you don't call the cops. You call in the big guns. And by big guns, I mean a lava lamp, a fake girlfriend, and enough theatrical rage to make Shakespeare weep. They say the camera was for security. But security doesn't usually require a telephoto lens aimed at a second-story window where a man sleeps in his underwear and harbors grudges like vintage wine. My name is Leo, and I turned my bedroom into a stage. What started as petty revenge became performance art. What started as performance art became evidence. And what started as evidence? Well, that became the most entertaining 3 months of my otherwise mundane suburban existence. Let me paint you a picture of where this masterpiece began. Picture this. It's 11:47 p.m. on a Friday, and I'm taking out the trash because I'm a responsible adult who definitely doesn't procrastinate until the trucks are literally turning onto my street. I'm wearing flip-flops that cost more than my first car and boxer shorts that have seen better decades when I notice it. A glint, a reflection, a tiny cyclops eye staring straight at my house. Now, I'm not paranoid by nature. I don't think the government is listening to my phone calls, mostly because my phone calls consist of me arguing with automated customer service systems and ordering Thai food. But this was different. The camera sat there like a mechanical gargoyle perched under Mrs. Edmonds's gutter, angled with the precision of a sniper's scope. And where was it pointing? Not at her driveway, not at her porch, not even at the street where those alleged porch pirates might strike. It was pointed directly at my bedroom window. I stood there in my underwear, holding a bag of garbage, staring at this violation of privacy, mounted with the casual confidence of a homeowner who clearly gave zero fucks about property lines or basic human decency. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I waved. Not a friendly wave, not a hello neighbor wave, a slow, deliberate, I see you seeing me wave that probably looked absolutely unhinged to anyone watching security footage of a half-naked man communing with trash bins at midnight. The next morning, I marched over there wearing my best concerned citizen face and my second-best khakis, the ones without the suspicious stain that might be barbecue sauce or might be evidence of a crime I've successfully repressed. Mrs. Edmonds answered the door looking like she'd been expecting me, which in retrospect she probably had, considering she'd watched me practice this conversation in my bathroom mirror at 7 a.m. while brushing my teeth. "Hey there, Mrs. Edmonds," I said, channeling every ounce of suburban politeness my mother had beaten into me. "I couldn't help but notice your new security camera. Really impressive setup you've got there." She blinked at me with the innocent confusion of someone who definitely knew exactly what I was talking about, but was committed to playing dumb until the end times. "It's for porch pirates, Leo. Everyone has them now. Crime is up, you know." Right. Because porch pirates are notorious for their second-story work and their interest in stealing glimpses of middle-aged men in their natural habitat. "Oh, absolutely," I nodded. Very forward-thinking. Though I have to ask, and this is probably just me being overly sensitive, but it seems like the angle might be catching a bit more than just your porch? "I wouldn't know," she said, which was probably the most honest thing she'd said so far. "My husband installed it. Very technical. You know how men are with their gadgets." How men are with their gadgets. Like voyeurism was a hobby you picked up at Home Depot. I smiled. She smiled. We both stood there smiling at each other like two people who absolutely understood the subtext, but were committed to this elaborate dance of suburban passive aggression. "Well," I said, "I'm sure it's perfectly legal. I'm sure you checked all the local ordinances about surveillance equipment. I'm sure you considered the privacy rights of your neighbors. I'm sure everything is completely above board." Her smile got a little tighter. "Of course it is." "Great," I said. "Just great. Because I'd hate for there to be any misunderstandings." And then I walked away, already planning my revenge. Here's the thing about being surveilled. It's only violating if you let it be. But if you lean into it, if you embrace the audience you never asked for, well, that's when surveillance becomes show business. I rearranged my entire bedroom like a set designer on methamphetamines. Bed positioned for optimal viewing angle, lighting adjusted for dramatic effect. I bought a lava lamp, not because I particularly liked lava lamps, but because nothing says unstable neighbor quite like bubbling wax and existential dread. Then I called Lana. Lana was my college roommate's girlfriend's sister, who'd dropped out of community college to pursue her dreams in theater. By pursue her dreams, I mean she'd been playing Rizzo in the same production of Grease for 3 years, running at a restaurant that served nachos during intermission. But Lana understood method acting. More importantly, Lana understood revenge. "You want me to what?" she asked when I explained my plan. "I want you to be my fake girlfriend, for surveillance purposes." That's either the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me or the most disturbing. I honestly can't tell. "Both," I said. "Definitely both." So Lana came over and we staged the most elaborate fake relationship drama since the invention of reality television. We fought about her fictional affair with my fictional best friend. We threw around props, books, pillows, a ceramic mug that I'd bought specifically for throwing because it looked dramatic but was actually made of that fake ceramic that doesn't really break. I wore a fake mustache and a hoodie, playing my own romantic rival in a scene that would have made Ibsen weep with confusion. We performed this theatrical masterpiece for 15 minutes, complete with dramatic exits, passionate reconciliations, and me fake crying into a wine bottle filled with cranberry juice because I'm not going to waste actual wine on performance art. It was beautiful. It was absurd. It was exactly the kind of content that would make any reasonable person question whether they really wanted to be surveilling their neighbors. But Mrs. Edmonds, as it turned out, was not reasonable people. 4 days later, I got a letter from the HOA. Not an email, not a phone call, a physical letter delivered to my mailbox like some kind of formal declaration of suburban war. "Dear Mr. Leone," it began, because apparently we were being formal now. "We have received concerning reports regarding repeated disturbances visible from the street, not audible, visible," which was interesting, because my bedroom window faces the back of the house. You literally cannot see into my bedroom from the street unless you have X-ray vision or access to surveillance equipment illegally pointed at private property. The letter went on to cite emotional instability and inappropriate gestures during visible windows of time, which sounded like they'd hired a lawyer to translate "this guy is weird" into legal speak. But here's where it got really interesting. They included screenshots. Not just any screenshots, professional quality screenshots, time-stamped, enhanced, filtered. There I was, in full fake breakdown mode, clutching my cranberry juice wine bottle, surrounded by dramatically scattered papers that I'd arranged for maximum visual impact. The lighting was perfect. The composition was flawless. It looked like a still from an indie film about suburban despair. Except the timestamp was wrong. The scene had happened at night, but the screenshot showed daylight, which meant someone had taken the original footage and run it through some kind of enhancement software. They'd adjusted the lighting, improved the contrast, maybe even color-corrected my fake tears for maximum emotional impact. This wasn't surveillance anymore. This was production, and I was the unwitting star of someone else's show. Now, you might think this is where I'd back down, where I'd realize that maybe I'd pushed things too far, that maybe it was time to be the bigger person and let sleeping dogs lie. You would be wrong, because I don't do backing down. I do doubling down, I do tripling down, I do whatever it takes to prove that if you want to play games with Leo, you better be prepared to lose. So I bought binoculars. Yes, I know exactly how that sounds. But hear me out. I wasn't aiming them at bedrooms. I wasn't interested in anyone's private moments or intimate secrets. I was conducting what you might call research. And my research paid off. Because what I discovered was that Mrs. Edmonds' son, let's call him Tyler, because he looked like a Tyler, was supplementing his allowance with a little side business in package redistribution. Tyler was 19, still living at home, and apparently unaware that porch piracy is both illegal and deeply stupid when you do it in your own neighborhood while wearing your high school mascot hoodie. I watched him work. Same routine every time. Wait for the delivery truck to leave, check to make sure no one was watching, except me with my binoculars from my bedroom window, which was a level of irony that almost made me dizzy, then casually stroll over and grab whatever had been delivered. He was stealing from the Johnsons, from the Patel family, from the elderly couple at the end of the block who probably couldn't afford to replace whatever Tyler was taking. I recorded everything. No filters, no enhancements, just good old-fashioned documentation of actual criminal activity. And then I sent it anonymously to the HOA. 10 days passed. Radio silence. I started to wonder if my anonymous tip had gotten lost in some bureaucratic black hole, destined to spend eternity in an inbox alongside expired coupons and Nigerian prince scams. Then came the neighborhood email blast. "Dear residents," it began, "due to recent findings regarding security concerns in our community, Certain footage has been submitted to local law enforcement for review. We want to assure everyone that the safety and security of our neighborhood remains our top priority. They didn't name names. They didn't specify what footage or what findings. But they didn't need to, because the next day, Mrs. Edmonds' camera was gone. Not repositioned, not adjusted, gone, vanished, like it had never existed at all. Victory tastes like many things. Sometimes it tastes like champagne and celebration. Sometimes it tastes like tears and regret. This victory tasted like cranberry juice and vindication, with just a hint of, I can't believe that actually worked. You'd think that would be the end of it. Problem solved, lesson learned, everyone moves on with their lives like civilized human beings. But you'd be underestimating my commitment to theatrical resolution. Because I had one more performance left in me, one final show for an audience that might or might not still be watching. I opened my bedroom window wide. I lit candles, not romantic candles, but the kind of candles you'd find in a medieval monastery where monks contemplate the futility of existence. I put on my bathrobe, the good one, the one that makes me look like Hugh Hefner's philosophical younger brother. And then I did something truly unhinged. I read the HOA bylaws, out loud, for 2 hours. But not just any reading, a dramatic reading, with voices, with gestures, with interpretive dance during the particularly boring sections about lawn maintenance and acceptable mailbox colors. I wore a paper crown I'd made from newspaper, because every performance needs a costume element that suggests both authority and complete psychological breakdown. I held a turkey leg, left over from a medieval times dinner I'd attended the weekend before, because nothing says unhinged suburban king quite like dramatically gesturing with processed poultry products. Article 7, Section 3, I proclaim to my empty bedroom and potentially occupied surveillance equipment, states that homeowners shall maintain their lawns in accordance with community standards, but fails to define what constitutes maintenance or who determines said standards, leading to a philosophical quandary about the nature of suburban conformity itself. I was Hamlet with a homeowners association handbook. I was King Lear raging against the injustices of covenant restrictions. I was every frustrated neighbor who'd ever received a strongly worded letter about their garbage can placement, transformed into theatrical gold. It was the performance of a lifetime, witnessed by no one and potentially everyone. The next morning brought a knock on my door. Mrs. Edmonds stood there looking like she'd aged 10 years in the past month. Her usual composed suburban armor had cracked, revealing something that looked almost human underneath. "You've made your point," she said. I could have been gracious. I could have accepted her surrender with dignity and class. I could have taken the high road. Instead, I closed the door without saying a word and went back to making breakfast. Because sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. But the story wasn't over yet. A week later, Tyler knocked. He looked nervous, sweaty, like a kid who'd been caught doing something he shouldn't and was trying to figure out how much trouble he was actually in. "I know it was you," he said. Know what was me? The footage, the HOA thing, my mom's camera. I leaned against my doorframe, suddenly very interested in this conversation. "Your mom's camera was pointed at my bedroom window, Tyler. That's called voyeurism. In some states, it's called a felony." He shifted uncomfortably. "I thought you'd be cool about it. I mean, I only took the packages because my dad cut off my allowance. I didn't think anyone would actually turn me in." There it was, the confession I didn't even know I'd been waiting for. "So you're telling me," I said slowly, "that your mother set up surveillance equipment to spy on her neighbors, and you used that same equipment to scout for packages to steal?" He nodded miserably. I paused, searching for the right words. "That's actually kind of brilliant. Horrible, but brilliant. Like a suburban crime family operation." Tyler looked confused, like he wasn't sure if I was complimenting him or insulting him. "Next time you want to supplement your income," I said, leaning in conspiratorially, "try Amazon lockers, much less likely to result in federal charges." He blinked at me like I just solved world hunger. "Really?" "Really. Also, maybe don't wear your high school mascot hoodie while committing crimes. It's not exactly what you'd call a disguise." He nodded earnestly, like he was taking notes on criminal methodology from a suburban life coach. "Thanks, Mr. Leone." "Don't thank me yet," I said. "Thank me when you're not in federal prison." And then he left, probably to go Google Amazon lockers and wonder why no one had told him about this miraculous innovation in package delivery. Now, months later, the neighborhood has returned to its usual state of quiet desperation and repressed hostility. No cameras point at my bedroom window, No HOA letters arrive in my mailbox. No packages mysteriously disappear from porches. But every once in a while, usually on quiet Tuesday nights when the suburban silence gets too oppressive, I still light the candles. I still turn on the lava lamp. I still pull out my paper crown and my turkey leg. And I perform. Not for cameras, not for revenge, not even for art. I perform because somewhere in this sanitized subdivision full of perfectly manicured lawns and carefully maintained facades, there needs to be at least one person willing to be absolutely, completely, unapologetically weird. I perform because normal is overrated, and surveillance is only effective if you're ashamed of being watched. I perform because Mrs. Edmonds might be gone, but Tyler is still out there, probably discovering that Amazon lockers require actual legitimate purchases, and someone needs to keep an eye on the neighborhood's criminal element. But mostly, I perform because it's Tuesday night. I'm wearing a bathrobe and a paper crown, and somewhere in this beige wasteland of suburban conformity, someone might still be watching. And if they are, they deserve a show. Because the first rule of suburban warfare is that nobody talks about suburban warfare. But the second rule? The second rule is that if you're going to fight, you might as well make it entertaining. After all, what's the point of having neighbors if you can't drive them completely insane? The lava lamp bubbles, the candles flicker, and I begin tonight's reading from the community guidelines regarding acceptable holiday decorations. Because the show, as they say, must go on.